Thank you for inviting me to come to Oklahoma City. I am impressed with the way this conference was organized. It is just great. The variety that you have, the classes, the breakout sessions where people get a chance to think and how we're going to apply this. The material you've done is excellent. The design, the books, just done a great job. Great job. So we talk about developing leadership in the local congregation, and something that we thought about all day long. You need to look at our rules. What are your rules? What are your rules? Usually unconscious, unspoken, understood, and contradictory. We need to stop and think how, if we're getting the wrong results, we're going through the wrong process. So we need to back up and say, what are our rules? And then number two, it's going to be painful. Whether it's in solving conflict, developing good relationships. I think one of the reasons that many elders never get around to talking about how's it going to church, it is uncomfortable to hear other people express their pain. I think that's one of the reasons that elders would rather be elders than shepherds, is because, man, people get in a mess. And if I spend all day mowing the churchyard, I know I ought to be out visiting people as a shepherd, but at least I've been doing the Lord's work and I'm tired and can't do anything else because it's painful. Well, I was in a meeting several years ago, and an elder had been working on the air conditioner pretty well all week long, and I just asked, I said, you know, I mean, I don't mind him doing that, but don't you have a deacon supposed to do that? They said, yeah. So we got a deacon in charge of that. I said, well, why is he doing it? He said, Jerry, it's a lot easier to work with air conditioners than it is with people. It's easier to fix air conditioning than hold the deacon responsible for doing it. So how do we develop leadership in the local congregation? It should be a normal part of discipleship, leading a fellow Christian and following Jesus. It starts with the relationships. And so when I thought about developing leaders, how was I developed? I think of 3 or 4 people. My mother and daddy were very encouraging and helpful. We just had preachers in our house all the time. They came and ate, they stayed with us during gospel meetings, and we had a preacher in our area, D. Ellis Walker. Some of you may know Ray Walker, sang with the Jordanaires. It was his uncle. And D. Ellis was the very epitome of dignity. Black suit, black bow tie, white shirt, but he had a sense of humor. And he was holding a meeting, and I grew up in Ships Bend outside of Central Tennessee, 25 or 30 people in the congregation. We'd have a gospel meeting, and he was at our house for Sunday lunch. He was at the head of the table. I was right next to him. And I was trying to use my fork and my knife. Usually I just take it like a popsicle and bite off a piece of ham, but I'm trying to do it right. Brother Walker's there, and I'm working, and it slipped, and a big old piece of ham hits him right in the ear. I just about died. What will this dignified preacher, the very epitome of godliness, what's he going to do to me? And he looked at me and he said, son, you certainly are a good shot. And that was it. We laughed and we went on. I thought, boy, that was close. I think of Garland Elkins. Garland Elkins was in the area and preached about 30 miles away where my parents went, my cousin went to church. And he was holding gospel meetings there in our home, and I still remember he had a 1956 Chevrolet, dark green, light green. And one morning he said, would you like for me to take you to school? And I said, sure. And he took me to school, and here's what I remember. I remember a sermon he preached. I don't remember any Bible verse he used, but here's what he said. He said, Jerry, I was 10 years old. He said, I wish you would seriously consider something. I said, what's that, Brother Elkins? He said, I think you need to consider being a gospel preacher. He said, I believe you would do an excellent job. Wow. I still remember that. That's been 63 years ago. But from that, I remember 56 Chevrolet, light green, dark green, stayed at our house, took me to school when I was in the 5th grade, and that's what he said. When I got to be a teenager, Ward Nidell Mayberry moved in next door to us. Ward worked for the National Guard, but he was our full-time preacher, which means he was there Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. My dad was a good man, but he didn't like to hunt, he didn't like to fish. He went fishing with me one time, hunting with me one time, and rather been at work both those times. But Ward loved hunting. And he took me hunting and fishing during dove season. He would meet me when I got off the bus. We had rules. That's where I learned some about rules. The rule was I had a double barrel 20 gauge. He had a Browning automatic with gold inlay. It was beautiful, 12 gauge. And the rule was we shot our own guns until Ward got the limit, and then we swapped. He'd take my double barrel and I get to shoot that Browning. And of course he got to kill the extra that I didn't get for the rest of the day. And then we went fishing together. And when he said in the winter of 1961, he said, Jerry, you know, I've been thinking about this, and there's no reason that we ought to have to pay somebody to come in and preach when I'm gone to National Guard camp in the summer. You'd preach one Sunday night, wouldn't you? Well, what are you going to say to a man let you shoot his Browning automatic shotgun that takes you hunting and fishing? I said, sure, I'll do it one Sunday night. Well, along about March, he said, hey, coming on your sermon. I said, well, I've been thinking about it. He said, come over to the house, I'll help you. And he helped me get up that sermon, and Idell typed the outline. That was June the 18th, 1961. And then the next month, I went to Lower Sulphur. They said, would you come back once a month? And then I started at Wolf Creek, and then Beaver Dam Springs, and I hadn't missed many Sundays since that time. But it was men like that and people like that who encouraged me to be where I am today. And I think we do the same thing with young men and young women who need to be taught to lead in the ways that they can. It starts with planting. It starts with good relationships, planting seeds 30 years before you expect to harvest. 2 weeks before time to ordain elders, or a little late to start looking. Really, it'd be better if we could start 2 generations before, but it's kind of like planting trees. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but if you hadn't done it, why not plant one today? Mark Adams preaches for the church in Corpus Christi, and he wrote a blog article on Saturday, January 28, 2017. And I include that in New Shepherd's orientation book that I take to a workshop. He has a mustard seed here that's great. He has a practice that every year he picks out an elder and he picks out one of his contemporaries or a younger man, and they commit to meeting once a month, every year. One of the elders, one of the younger people. And you think if every elder did that, if every preacher did that, over 10 years, look what you got. You're influencing a lot of people. And it starts with a very simple thing. You just make a commitment that I'm going to plan to do that. So if you'd like to get some more information on his blog, I'll leave that right there. And then the process continues by having them experience small victories with increasing challenges, showing them how, letting them help, watching them do it, then turning them loose on their own. Number 2 is training. First is recruiting. Number 2 is training. Training and teaching are different. Teaching is essential. But teaching without training results in leaders knowing what they ought to be doing, ought not to be doing, or not doing well, and feeling guilty for not doing and doing it well. You can't read enough books to play a good basketball game. You need to know some facts, but the only way you're ever going to do it is get out there and shoot and dribble and shoot and dribble and practice and do it over and over and over again. I think we need to teach qualifications, but many times churches where I have communicated, they think they've had an elders training class, when what they've done is they went through 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1 and talked about how many kids you got to have, and gone over all that. You need to settle all that stuff, but that's not training people to be shepherds and to be overseers and to do the things that needs to be done. Here's my observation. Training for leadership involves putting men in controlled, painful situations, helping them to live and learn until the initially painful tasks become comfortable and normal. Training involves putting people in painful situations where you put them on the spot. Back, I went to Dalton, Georgia, and they said, Jerry, we would like some help in evangelism. We would like that to be an emphasis. Do you think you could help us involve the congregation? I said, I think I can. I said, I got a 13-week training class that I've been teaching. And what we need, number one, we need the elders and deacons and their wives involved. It'll be 3 hours a night for 13 weeks. And then, after we do elders and deacons, we'll start, we have about a 5-page application that people filled out just to get into the class. We have people standing in line for that. And what I would do, this is years ago, I'd teach Jewel Miller film strips, and then I'd teach OBS, Ivan Stewart's OBS. I would teach the first lesson this week, and then the next week they would teach the lesson, and I'd be the prospect, and I'd try to put enough pressure and give enough objection that they would nearly cry. I'd try to quit right before they did, and sometimes I missed it, and they'd just break down in tears. I would be rougher than a cob on them and deny that baptism had anything to do with salvation. And I would talk about Acts chapter 8, and Philip saw that EU nut. What is an EU nut? And I'd let them explain to me what an EU nut was. And just try to make it really tough on them, where that when they finally started teaching their friends, they said, man, that's a lot easier than Jerry Barber. And they go get them another one. And so that's what I'm talking about. You put people in painful, embarrassing situations and let them experience that. You will not win the Friday night football game by putting your backs and your tackles and your guards in a reclining chair playing video games all week long. They got to go out and exercise and knock heads, and you got to get ready for the game. 1967, third time I was ever in an airplane, it was taking my first flying lesson. I'd always just been amazed by airplanes. I'd hear one, I'd go outside, and I'd watch it as far, and then I'd watch it till it went outside. And I thought, man, I'd like to fly an airplane one day. So when I moved to West Tennessee, my first full-time work, an elder that I knew in an adjoining congregation was just started taking flying lessons. And he introduced me to Lawrence Browning, and I started doing that. And what you do, you got to pretty well do it right all the time. You know, it's kind of like airplane poisoning. One drop, you're dead. And so you got to do it right. And you start out. He takes off. We get up to flying altitude, and he shows you how to fly straight and level. That's pretty okay. A little more on that right rudder, and you get to where you can fly a straight line pretty well. And then you go up and you down, you turn right and you turn left, and finally. As we'd been doing that, we went through stalls, and in January of that year, or the next year, 68, it had snowed, about 8 inches of snow. I went out and he took a Ford tractor with a blade on it, cleared out enough runway for us to take off and land. And we went around and around 3 or 4 times. He said, you think you can do it by yourself? I said, I think I can. He said, let me out on the next run. And so that's the way you do it. You start real simple, real simple. And then you pull it up to where it loses flying speed and it starts going down, and then you learn how to deal with that, and you practice that until you're comfortable doing that. That same thing needs to be done in training people to be leaders. Let me tell you one of the finest things I ever saw. When I was in Dalton, Georgia, we were there 11 years, from 1977 to 1988, raised our children there. Jerry Wayne was 8, and my daughter was 5, and we stayed there. Well, Jerry Wayne went to College Christian, lacked 1 year of high school when we left. We loved it there. Beautiful country, beautiful people, great work. In fact, my son named his first son, he named him Dalton, and that's what he thinks of the community and the church there. We took Dalton to Dalton when he was 2 years old, and there's a sign as you turn off Walton Avenue going down where the church building used to be there on King and Selvage, and it says, welcome to Dalton. And my grandson thought they'd built that just for him. He was honored. But here's what we did. I preach a sermon soon after I get to a congregation. I do what I call a workshop every month in interim ministry. It's on a Sunday night, usually the first Sunday night. And a workshop means it's very, very practical. But it is a code word for saying I can preach as long as I want to. And so the workshop on criticism is an hour and 4 minutes. And they can't say anything about it because I told them I'll announce it that morning. If they don't want to hear it, they don't have to come. But one of the workshops I do is we need to have more funerals and parties. We need to celebrate. We need to feel good and celebrate what we do well, and we need to have good closing and be sad and buried. Somebody just told me they've been reading my blog and now they're having eldership funerals. I just think it's essential. If you hadn't read that, read that in the blog. When we appointed elders in Dalton, Georgia, the new ones, 2 years, one of them resigned, and then we were going to appoint a new leaders. We would have taken 2 or 3, but we had 1. And so I asked them at our February meeting, y'all going to have a funeral for the eldership? And they said, what in the world are you talking about? And I said, well, let me just make a couple of observations. Of course, they always got my wastebasket, and they know they can throw it away. So I said, number one, when you appoint a new elder, generally you don't get new elders, you get junior elders who are trainees. Number two, when you appoint a new elder, you not only get a new elder, you have a new eldership. The group is different. If you have a beaker with a chemical and you drop a drop of another chemical, you don't just have a drop of stuff, you have a new compound. And so I think it would be good to realize you have a new eldership. The gospel is death, burial, resurrection. And so I just think it'd be good to have a funeral and bury the old eldership, and then you can have a resurrection with the new. That was February. They came back to March and they said, Jerry, we decided we want to have an eldership funeral. We want you to preach it. And so we went to a log cabin in Belleville, Tennessee, where they have the Moon Pie Festival every year, and spent the night in a log cabin and had a 3-hour eldership funeral. What do you do at an eldership funeral? You do the same thing you do at any other funeral. Stand around the casket, look at the dead man, talk about him. And so we talked about their relationship. They came into a very tumultuous time. And how did you feel during that time? And how long did it take you to feel like real elders? Can you remember when you started feeling like an adult most of the time? This summer I was 37. I felt less like a kid, more like an adult. But one of the things we did at Dalton that was really helpful when we started having more parties. And the reason we had parties is because I asked for them. That was a place where I said I've tried it with them without encouragement. And so I said, until I get to be a spiritual giant, I want to party the first week of April every year. And when I get to be a spiritual giant, I'll tell you I don't need it anymore. And so I started getting parties after that. And they realized maybe some other people need that. And so they had started, we had teenage appreciation weekend every year in February. Every year, one of the great events was a deacon appreciation party. We'd reserve a restaurant, and we were there on Thursday night, and all the deacons and their wives were invited. Preacher and his wife got to attend. We would have a speaker to encourage them. And then the highlight of the night was the Deacon of the Year award. The deacon of the year was selected by fellow deacons. And so the elders weren't picking, the deacons were saying, here's what it looks like to be an ideal deacon at the Central Church of Christ in Dalton, Georgia. And they would present him with a plaque that night. And then they'd take it away from him. And Sunday morning they'd present it to him again in front of the whole church, and then he got to take it home with him. And that deacon of the year was invited to every elders meeting for the next 12 months, unless there was something confidential. And he got to associate with the elders and see how they operated and see how they did that. Guess who the elders in Dalton, Georgia are now? The deacons of the year 30 years ago. And so you start by involving people. I think part of training is to remind leaders that they don't know what they're doing. And we've had this comment, and one of the elders up here talked about, you can't do everything. You do some things now. I have never known a doctor that does everything. Can you imagine going to a doctor and he gives you your physical, and he said, well, I need to talk to you about a few things. He said, you got a sinus infection. I'm going to give you a CPAC and give you a shot before you leave. And I think you probably need about 4 bypasses. I'll do that for you the day after tomorrow. And I think probably you got some cancer in the kidney, and I'll take that out week after next. No, they don't do that. Your general practitioner doesn't do your bypass surgery. He don't know how to do that. He don't know what he's doing. He is good at this, but he's not good at that. That's not only true of doctors, it's true of elders and deacons and other places. I think we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and feeling comfortable saying, I don't know, but I'll stay with you until we find someone who knows. If someone knows and we can't, I'll stay with you until the end without knowing how to solve your problem. Our hope is in our pain. Crucifixion comes before resurrection. Let me tell you a couple of things that I do. In doing interim ministry is different from fill-in preaching. Fill-in preaching is just filling in till the next fellow shows up. I go into a church and we do a self-study. I do a series on Luke 9:23 when I get there. And I say, we're not ready to start looking for a preacher. We're going to look at ourselves first. The way you find a good preacher is you become the kind of church that will attract the kind of preacher that you want to come here next. And so I preach for Luke 9:23 for 7 weeks. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. We do a self-study. And then I do some leadership classes. And these are just some things, just some ideas that I put together over the years that I think has been helpful. First I wrote this one in 1995, and it continues to go. It's called God's Great Servants. I call this the administrative side of leadership. Each class has four sections. Number one, we look at leadership prayers. How do leaders pray? We looked at one this morning, or this afternoon. Solomon said, Lord, I ain't got enough sense to get in and out of the rain. I don't know how to count people, much less the leader. Can you imagine a leader praying like that? But Solomon did. We looked at Jeremiah's prayers. We look at David's prayers. Look at the prayers of David. Boy, Psalm 51's rough. Boy, I messed up. The fellow I was telling you a couple of days ago talking about, he said, did you know what? He said, I've had elders at my congregation in the last couple of years to apologize to me 6 or 7 times. He said, that is amazing. I said, yeah, it is. Did you know that some leaders think they are weak when they apologize? They think they got to stand up and don't, if you ever did anything wrong, deny it because you're going to lose respect. No, it's the other way. And so I'm developing a module for New Shepherd's Orientation Workshop on how to apologize. A lot of folks don't know how to do it. Any of you familiar with Seth Godin? Seth Godin is weird. You just go to his website. All you have to do is type in Seth and he'll be one of the first things that pops up on Google. He has blogged every day, 365 days a year, 66 on leap years, for about 8 years. Every day, about 5:30 in the morning, Seth Godin appears. And he has some classics. He had one on an apology. An apology needs to have contrition and compassion. When I'm making an apology, I need to be able to say, I regret what I did. I see that it caused you pain, and I am truly sorry for that. I really, really regret that. I did not want to hurt. That's not my aim as an individual. And here's what I learned from that. And in the future, here's what you can expect from me. See, an apology is not, well, I'm sorry you took it that way. I didn't do it. That really wasn't what I had in mind, and you just took it wrong. No, you're adding insult to injury. And so we need to know how to do that. How do you do that? And David, boy, he didn't try to make excuse. Lord, I did it wrong. I messed up against you. You only if I sinned, done this evil in your sight. And he just over and over again, please forgive me. Restore to me the joy of my salvation. That's why a leader prays when he messes up. And then Psalm 32 say, boy, that's good. Blessed is the man to whom the Lord will not impute sin. He's got Teflon now. Nothing sticks anymore because he has a relationship with the Lord. And we have that relationship with the Lord today. I like Charles B. Williams' translation. If we continue to live in the light just as he is in the light, we have unbroken fellowship with one another. The blood of Jesus, his Son, continues to cleanse us from every sin. 1 John 1, verse 7. So we look at leadership prayers and we talk about that. That's the way leaders pray. Look at Jeremiah. When he's ready to quit, wished his mother's still pregnant. He's so depressed he don't know what to do. And then we look at leadership projects. Ideally, I like to have 30 people in a class, and we get in the start of a big circle and we talk about the prayers. But one of the things we emphasize is be aware of what's going on. What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on in this group? A lot of people see it just as a business transaction, and I think I'm right. I'm going to argue. If I win a can for cane, I'll give in to the rest of it, but I don't like it. Well, what's going on here? What's going on here? See, if I don't do that, we will develop in many groups a head elder. Have y'all ever heard of a head elder in Oklahoma? We got some in Tennessee. Man, powerful, powerful. One of the most powerful head elders I ever saw in my life. I served in this congregation for a while, and if we were in a meeting and things weren't going his way, we met on Wednesday night. He said, well, brother, it's about time to go out and meet the folks. And he would get up, and it was almost like everybody was chained to him without any question. They would just walk out of the room. And that was the end of that. They knew, don't ever bring that up again. And they didn't. If it were during kind of halfway through the meeting, he would simply say, well, when you boys get as old as I am, you'll know you can't do it that way. And that was the end of that. That is a toxic head elder. Isn't that horrible for a man to do that? Well, that's not a good way to operate, but you have to remember that the identified patient is rarely the cause of the problem, but where the symptoms of the group surface. It's not just the man who's doing that, but there's about 6 or 8 other men who are cooperating with that. And so if a situation is chronic, it's because everybody likes it the way it is more than what it would take to change it. I had an elder talk to me, and Gail and I visited there not long ago, and I said, Gail, right there is where we were when Don told me that. One Wednesday night, the head elder had pulled the plug, and nothing was going to happen there. It was 5 most depressing years of my ministry. And he said, Jerry, I know it has to be discouraging for you. He said, I really know we ought to let that happen. But, he said, you know, he's already had 1 heart attack. And I'm afraid if we were to cross him, it would upset him, and he might have another heart attack and die. And I don't think I could live if I had disagreed with him in an elders meeting and he died during the night. I said, well, I understand you being concerned. I said, have you ever heard of anybody? He said, you know, he's old and he's already had 1 heart. I said, have you ever heard of anybody 46 years old having a heart attack? He said, well, yeah. I said, why is his heart attack more important than my heart attack? See, we need to understand the dynamics. What we do, we have 30 people, we go through the prayer, now we're going to divide up into groups, and we're going to make decisions. You know, you pray for elders as they make their decisions. So we work on making decisions. So we divide up into about 3 elderships, about 10 men in each eldership. And I give them situations that elders have to decide about. How would you like to see the eldership handle this situation? But I tell them, don't only just do this. That we're in a laboratory here. You're safe. You're safe. You're not really having to make these decisions and be carried out, but you're praying. But be aware of how this group operates. How do you make decisions? Is it the first to speak, the last to speak, the loudest to speak? Need to look at your rules. Need to look at your rules. I've seen in many congregations. I was at another church, and they would talk, and this fellow right over here, they'd say, well, what do you think about it? He said, I don't need to think about it in a minute. And that's the last time. That was code word for don't ever bring that up again, because I'm not going to go along with it. And that's just the way it went. That's the way it was. That's the way it was. And so I need to be aware. When we're participating in any group, we have an opportunity to say, what's going on here? What's going on here? See, there's more than meets the eye. And what I try to do in this group is to make people aware of what's going on. We need to know what's going on in families. Do you know how you flinch when somebody said this? Do you know how they look the other way? This person won't look you in the eye. All that's going on all the time. The more we can be aware of that and check it out. I see a tear running down your eye, down your cheek. What does that mean? And Kirk says, I got sawdust. And I said, oh, okay, I didn't know. I just wanted to see if there's something wrong. See, that means something. When you see water running out, that means something, but it's good to check that out. Could be sadness, could be sawdust. You know there's a difference in the two. And so we need to check that out. And what we try to do is make people aware of what's going on. So we do leadership projects. And then we come back to the group and everybody reports on what they did. And then one time during the quarter, we'll have group number one making decisions, and group number two will sit in a circle and take notes. Who participated, how did they operate with each other, and so without pressure they're able to do that. And then we come back and we talk about leadership principles. Start out with guidelines to negotiate. I like to work out the rules. And then we talk about such things as how do leaders escape the double bind of a desire to be a leader. Desire is necessary, 1 Timothy 3 and 1, 1 Peter 5, 1 and 2. But a lot of times if a person expresses a desire to be in a leadership position, they're accused of being power hungry. Many men feel a need to deny the desire in order to not be lifted up with pride. How do you communicate that? How do leaders attain and maintain the state of being blameless? If a paid staff member becomes disqualified, what do you do? And then if they're still ineffective, how do you do? If you were the staff member, how would you want to be treated? And then if a volunteer becomes disqualified, what do you do? And if they do that, become ineffective, what do you do? Some people say you can't fire a volunteer. Do you have to pay people to do what they promised they were going to do? Can you let somebody destroy the effectiveness of ministry just because they're a volunteer? We talk about resigning and preventing leadership suicide. How do you get rid of a bad elder? That's one of the most frequent questions that I'm asked when I go into a leadership congregation with conflict. Would you like to know my prescription for that? How do you get rid of a bad elder? Here's the way you do it. Have a lot of elder appreciation parties. See, if you had never had an elders appreciation party and told them they're doing a good job, if all you do is gripe about your leaders, when you gripe again, they're going to say that's all he ever does, gripe. That's just the way he is. Select good people, support good people, pray for good people, compliment good people, give roses to their wives, write notes to them. And then when you say, I think you need to think about that, it'll have more weight. So that's a 13-week plan on the administrative part. And then I have one called called Learning to Love My Friend, Learning to Love My Friend Jesus, and then Learning to Love Others as Jesus Loves Me. And this is the pastoral part. I like to do these. We do these from house to house. Like to have, what I do is a lot of times when I go into the congregation, we all have elders, staff, and spouses. We do secretary, all ministers on staff. 3 hours a night, and that includes a meal during that time. And we have Jesus is my friend because he understands me. He understands me when I'm tired. He understands me when I'm sad. He understands me when I'm lonely. Jesus, my friend, tells me the truth. And we just look at Jesus and how he relates to people. If you have any questions, if any of that is helpful to you, I'll be glad to send you files on all that. You probably won't understand it, but I'll be glad to talk to you and tell you what I had in mind when I put it down. And then it is not copyrighted, so you can improve it, make it good, and use it. Some of you have asked about my great-grandson, Connor, and I promised if you would stay, I'd let you know. We talked this morning about his scoliosis and going to Dallas. And he went through the surgery, and there were some horrible videos that preceded the one that we saw this morning. That was very tame.
What you can do.
Of some of the days he wasn't even able to go 5 or 6 feet, just screaming and crying.
You got it. Stand up.
Why in the world would kind, gentle Christian parents let a child suffer that?
Good job. Come on.
This is his first day with his halo off.
Let me see you walk. Look at you. Good job, Connor. Come here. Come here. Look at you. Silly goose.
They told him to walk just a little bit, and they couldn't get him slowed down.
Can you wave to everybody? Careful, bud. This way. Come here. Can you wave? Can you say hi? Say hi. Want to climb on everything. Boom! You got Muppet on you.
That's the reason you encourage people to go through the pain. See that smile? Isn't that powerful? Edwin Friedman, who writes a great deal on family systems. And beside the Bible, for my ministry, Generation to Generation is the most helpful book I've ever read in my life. You may not like it. It is complicated, long sentences, long words, complicated stuff. He said a leader is someone who increases toleration for pain in himself and others. And if the goal is, let's try to keep everybody happy, and let's get through this just as soon as we can so we can get comfortable again, you're not going to do very much. But our hope is in our pain. We glory in tribulation because tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope, and hope does not disappoint. So how can pain be beneficial and growth producing? People ask me about barefoot running. Why do you do it? 2 reasons. Number 1, brings back good childhood memories. Just love it. When I was 5 years old, Mother and I would have this discussion every spring. When is it warm enough to start going barefoot? And once I did that, man, it was the rest of the seat. Just enjoy it. Number two, barefoot running is a good parable for life. People ask me, doesn't that hurt? What do you run on? Run on pavement, concrete, mostly. Well, doesn't that hurt? Yeah. You run you run 13 miles without any shoes on an asphalt road. When you get back, the skin will be off the bottom of your feet. And many times, if I've been hitting it pretty hard, I'll have a blister on each heel. It'll burn all day on Sunday, or Saturday, the day of the race. It'll burn some on Sunday. But by Tuesday, I've never felt better in all my life. I felt better when I was 20. I can't remember. If all I'm going to do in life is try to be comfortable, you're not going to accomplish very much. You're not going to accomplish very much academically. You're not going to accomplish very much professionally. You're not going to accomplish very much in a sport. You're just not going to accomplish very much if all you do is try and stay comfortable. Our hope is in our pain. Pain can be helpful when it produces good results, when pain is anticipated, chosen, and managed. From that time, Matthew 16:21, from that time, Jesus began to say to his disciples, we must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things, the elders, chief priests, and scribes be killed, be raised again the third day. They didn't understand, they didn't have the foggiest idea of what he's talking about. They said, what's he talking about? I don't know. What do you think he's talking about? I don't know. Why don't you ask him? I'm scared. Well, I'm scared too. So let's just leave it. And they did. And they didn't believe it. And it's amazing to me that they did not go out to the tomb on Sunday morning. We better get up early. Man, I want to see that. That's going to be powerful when he walks out of that tomb. No, they went to put some more spices on a dead body and said, we're going to get the stone away. But he just kept on telling them, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. In fact, before every fuss, if you'll go back and look at the context, he had just told them, I'm going to be killed. And then they had a fuss on who's going to be the greatest. But after all, they said, now I know what he was talking about. Yeah, you know, he told us that. I don't know what world he's talking about. Now it all makes sense when it's anticipated. Matthew 26, 31, 32. The shepherd will be smitten and the sheep will be scattered. And Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cock crows. When it's anticipated, when it is chosen. John chapter 10, 17 and 18. Therefore my Father loves me because Jesus, it's read in my Bible, Jesus is talking, because I lay down my life that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. This command I've received from my Father. Nobody made me do it. I wish I didn't. I chose that. Jesus died when he got ready. And then when it is managed, Matthew chapter 26, you manage it by reducing pain. People ask me, what do you do when you're running barefoot? What do you do about rocks and glass? Well, what I do is I look where I'm going, and when I see some rocks and glass, I run around it. I don't just say, man, there's some rocks and glass. I want to see if I can cut my foot today. No, you manage your pain. Yeah, it hurts, but you don't have to, you don't have to be weird about it. Just try to hurt as little as you can. Well, every once in a while you miss it. What do? I go home, lay down on the couch, and my wife gets out a needle and her magnifying glass and digs all she can out. And a time or two she's missed, you feel it in there, and you know what happens? About 3 weeks, I'm scratching my foot one Sunday morning while I'm studying, and a piece of gravel rolls out. Most things in life work themselves out. They just kind of roll out on their own. Don't get too upset. So now when I step on rocks or gravel, I ask 2 questions. Number 1, do I believe it's going to be fatal? If it is, I want to get on my cell phone, call my family, and tell them goodbye. Number 2, is it bleeding? If it is, maybe I cut short this run, wouldn't have to do the whole 13.1. I'll go back home, try to bandage it up. So far, I've been able to answer those negatively, and if I don't think it's fatal, if it's not bleeding, I just keep on running. Life is painful. But when it is anticipated, chosen, and managed, you can be good shepherds and good deacons and good preachers and good Christians but not without pain. Our hope is in our